Okay, welcome everybody again. So today basically we concentrating on some of the down and uploading of data, graphs and workspaces you will be doing. So we give you a taste of what that is going to be like. Don't worry, we will rerun a session once everything is in place, particularly the front end with that's being built by CropMetrics and by Xsense, right? So once that is all together, we'll have another session on that. Then I wanted to show you a couple more commands in the graph menu bar, some of the tools that are there. I want to touch on the reports, just on the main ones relatively briefly, and we cover some of the workspace toolbar buttons. And then that's pretty much it for the time being. The rest is you start practicing a little bit and write down questions, or if you get stuck with something, just write it down, and then what we'll do is we have a specific session where we just go through things that are, sort of question marks in your mind. Okay, so let's start with the downloading of data. Okay. Just need to get to my screen for a second. There's my button gone.
It's reorganized the shortcut.
Yeah, I did. Where's the button to be done?
Just go to Firefox and see the short. Yeah, it's in your bookmarks, right?
Yeah. Okay. So we will be giving you a internet address similar to something like that, selvin@viruscanplus.com, from A. Smith, which is a certified crop water use expert, and Cotton, that can be his farm and field. And what you be seeing as webified information is something along these lines. These are not particularly nice data because it's our demo probe sitting on the table, more or less, but it's just a tool to show you what graphs can look like. I haven't put any full refill points in here either. So imagine that would be a workspace with 3 probes in it. And what we will do, we will set up each initial workspace for you in the first place. Yep. So when we start in earnest, if we actually know the names that you want to assign to the workspace, it's probably your own name and the farmer's name as such, something like that. You might think about that, and we can have some exchange on that, particularly with Selvin. That would be really good for us to have all the lists of the names and all the conventions well before we start. And then what we're going to do is we create these workspaces. So the first time, what you do is you go to this internet site and you just download IrrMAX workspace package. Okay? So all you have to do is, it says here open with, you just click OK. And what will happen, it will say, okay, this is the file name. On your own computer, you have to make a directory for the workspaces that you're going to be dealing with. So in this case, I just called it C/demo/packages. When the data are extracted, you probably should delete. Otherwise, if you do it again, you get accumulation of a lot of data. So we suggest you delete the original package after file extraction and hit OK. And look, that's your workspace now on your computer. As easy as that. And now it's sitting on your computer, and now you can actually start massaging it any which way you like. So you can pick up the first graph here, and you can say, okay, click on this bottom pane. Let's put in some full and refill points. So you would go to this little window here, go budget lines. Great. I just put some in just for show and tell right now. 0.8. Put your onset of stress in 20. 20.8. Click OK. You might add some comments, something, whatever. OK. You might add another graph pane if you wish, which is this one, but expressed as total negative change on a daily basis, for example, and the color will be blue. Okay. So basically, after you put all your comments and your own additions in it, you minimize this. Actually, before you do, you probably should save it. Save it with a little button on the graph window itself. So just save it. And you can now go, if you just want to mail that particular graph to us, you just click Tools and mail the graph. And that already is going to be set up for you as well. It has automatically our address in there. And also we know from basically what probe it came, what workspace it belongs to, and so on and so on. So you highlight IrrMAX package recipient and click OK. Okay.
Oh, that's a new one.
It's a new one.
Yeah.
Try again.
No, don't try it again.
Okay.
That actually said mail sent successfully.
Okay. Great. Okay. So that mail now is back in our code. Now, the other thing you can do is you can actually upload or mail the entire workspace to us, and that's probably what you're going to be doing the first time rather than individual graphs. And to do this, you go to Tools, and you mail the workspace. Do not upload it at the moment, and do not webify it. Just use the mail command. The other ones, the webification is something which is not part of that system we're building now. That's if you want to do your own, set up your own system in another context. So don't worry about webification right now. The uploading of workspace will cover later after a few weeks of you just doing the mailing. And once you all get confidence, we give you the ultimate key to go to upload workspace directly, so without any interference. But we thought it probably would be a good idea in the first few weeks that you mail the workspaces that you've modified and created back to us. And to do that, you just click that button. And again, it will automatically have its address there, back to us. And it will actually say, okay, these are changes from workspace, farm or crop so-and-so, from water use advisor, Mr. A. Smith. And you just click OK. And it's been successfully sent.
So what we do with that?
Yes?
Peter, this is probably the dumbest question you've ever heard, but why am I mailing you a workspace? Why am I emailing it to you?
What we're going to do when we get that is modify the workspaces that are producing the webified graphs. It's a round trip. So when we get the changes you've made to your budget lines or whatever, we then give it a once over to make sure it's all reasonable, and then it will actually update our server, which then produces the webified graph that we started with, which you could then download again. It's basically a loop.
Okay. All right. Makes sense. I just didn't understand
Yeah.
why we were doing it. Okay.
Yeah. So it's just a bit of quality control, maybe for the first, few weeks to make sure everybody gets it, because then the next command would be the uploading of the workspace, which is also under tools, right? That one here, upload workspace, and that will basically you can then basically send all the graph documents more or less directly to your own server. It does still go through our loop, but without any interference from us.
Yeah, what would happen here is the graph documents in the workspace that you've modified would be, through this function, FTP'd straight to the machine that's doing the webifying, thus bypassing the human element at Centec. So that's a little bit dangerous than going through the email method, but it's an alternate way of doing it.
So if I'm hearing you guys right, so what do we use in the email version, and once you guys feel, okay, you've got it, you understand what you're doing here, and then after we've got that set up, then we can bypass that human filter there, and then we're good.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly right. Yep, exactly right. So
Could I just make another point that sending the changes back to be webified is for those people who are viewing the graphs on the web. I mean, obviously, once you've got your workspace downloaded initially, you could continue to use that on your own machine. If the changes you made to graphs you didn't want to publish to those people who are just viewing them on the web, then you don't need to upload them back up to us.
Okay.
yeah. Now, so the first time you basically download the entire package, and that gives you the workspace, that gives you our graphs and the database. So you got everything pretty much in a few button pushes on your own computer, and then you start modifying it and send it back up. And you only probably do that, occasionally. As soon as you actually want to add comments, or you say, hang on, I want to change that graph, I want to add another graph, I want to have one graph, say, stretching for 3 weeks, but I also want to have one graph stretching for 2 or 3 months or something like that. So that's when you basically download the package, you add things, and you send it back up to us. If you want to download the databases directly to your computer, you don't have to go through this package way. We can then basically set you up with a, I think that symbol's covering the...
Just hit the restore button on the workspace, that one.
Come on, yeah.
So it's got download commands set up already.
See these downloads commands? That's all ready to go. So when you get that, that will be in place as well. So all you have to do, you basically go from graphs back to databases, right? And you see all the databases. These could be 10 probes on this particular farm. And all you need to do is go to Edit and start batch downloading. And it will download all the 10 probes automatically, right? Here they go. And if you've got weather data and it's been set up for that, that will happen at the same time as well. So it's pretty much one button push, and you update all the probes, all the weather data in your workspace. Okay? That's for your own, if you want always the latest data on your own computer to conduct an analysis.
Yeah, we're downloading the data from a URL that'll be supported by AgSense. So once you've got your own databases on your machine, then you can operate completely independently and download direct from the AgSense server whenever you need to.
Okay, is that sort of? So don't worry, we'll run through that again with probably some real data example as we get closer. The main thing is that you really know how to create graphs, how to save them, how to put certain properties and feature into them. You get fit with that. But when I get to the US, we might just practice that a little bit more as well. And we certainly can have more webinars after a while until you have done some practicing. And let me know which areas sort of not really quite clearly understood, and then we can go through again. Okay. Now we'll go back to our old workspace. But that's all familiar. Okay, I want to draw your attention on the graph menu bar. There is a button called Tools. We just want to go through that and want to see what sort of things you can do with that. When you click Tools, you can enter readings. And that means you can actually manually type in stuff into any database. So if I pick the alpha, or yeah, let's pick the alpha one. Okay, which we created the other day. Remember, that was temperature, minimum, maximum, rain, and ETO. You can now pretty much enter values into this at your heart's content. So, you know, if, for example, if there's a bad reading or something like that, that can be actually changed. Like you made an error or there's a missing value somewhere in the weather data, that can be corrected that way. So it's just really a manual editing tool of a database. I'll change that. The next one is export.
Peter, because you're showing the graph tab, it's asking you to select a database every time you choose those. If you go to the databases tab and highlight one, just minimize the graph. Go to the databases tab. There. Yeah, now if you highlight that and then you choose the tool from the menu, it'll do it on the highlighted database and you don't have to browse for it.
Yeah, so do it here and oops. Ah, that's open, so I have to close that.
You've got it down there.
Yeah.
Just click that and close it off.
That's it. Okay, that's actually a soil water database that you see here. So here's actually the inches per depth level. And here's the date and timestamp on the left. And here we got voltages. Here we got the voltages during actual upload. And then the rest, there's no recording. That's why it's called invalid. I should go back to the graph window because that's where I want to be. Oops. Okay, so go back to the graph. So hit Tools. You can, in another setup, you would download here. I recommend not to use a download button in this graph menu for the way we're setting up the system for you. So just ignore the download in the actual graph window. Okay? So just make a note not to use it there. When you want to download, all you need to do is go to Databases and Edit and start the batch download. Right? So don't do any individual downloading into graphs. Okay, Tools. You can export data to a CSV file, text file. So you just give it a file name of something. And browse where you want to put it. I'll just table do. Bing. And it's basically now transporting all the data into a CSV file. And then you can do other things with it in Excel.
Although if you wanted to do things in Excel, we can you can export directly to an Excel file
as well. Yep.
And that's exporting everything from the database, right? Everything that's in there?
Yes. The other way, if you don't want to export the entire database, what you do, Nick and everybody, you can zoom in. You say you just want this amount of data. Okay. What you do now is you go to the new text data window, and all you have now is your selected data that you have on screen. Only these. So that's a big difference. You know, if you don't want the entire database, if you just say, okay, I just want these data, you select it, and then you go File, and save as. Okay, and then you give it a text file name, which you then can convert back into an Excel file. Okay, there's another one called Spike Remover. Now sometimes people go to the probe site and pull it out half the way and stick it back in, and that's going to generate some spikes, obviously. And so sometimes the database, you know, looks a bit messy if somebody has done that. I just demonstrate what you can do with that tool. If you click Spike Remover, it finds natural spikes, which could be sharp irrigation events, or actually, you know, a really big spike. This database actually hasn't got one, but a really bad one. But I'll just show you what happens. It's sorted in order of severity if you click the severity button, and see it found a spike there. And if that is if this is just a thin line going up and down, which is, you know, caused by somebody actually taking the probe out and putting it back again, then you can get rid of that. In this case, it's actually a genuine one, which is, you know, an irrigation event. So if you stack through these, it finds all pointy things, and you can decide whether you want to eliminate it. But these are all looking good to me. So as I say, there's no really bad spikes in this set here. Okay. The next one is recalculate database. Again, I would advise you not to touch that one. That is really for scientists that have generated their own calibration equation for a specific soil texture to have ultra accuracy, and then we can actually recalculate values, after the first season, after they've done their thing. So that's not going to apply to you right now. Next, we have, you can zip a graph, what that will do, it will actually combine everything, all the graphs, the workspace, the layout window, and the databases. And you could send that to somebody like me and saying, hey, have a look, what do you think? And I could comment on this, and I could actually send it back to you zipped, right? So you don't have to save everything together. Everything is packaged, and you can just basically send it via email to somebody.
Yeah, if I just clarify, you're on the graph window, so what's going to get zipped up here is this graph and any databases that it requires.
Yeah.
On the workspace window, you've got a corresponding zip workspace.
Yeah.
Which
is this one?
Which is everything in the workspace.
Yeah. That one there.
Yeah.
So that symbol, if you hit this, everything that you see is being zipped up. If you just hit the graph, just the graph is being zipped up and the associated database.
Although if you're wanting to zip just for the purposes of mailing it to somebody, the facility's already there in MailGraph or Mail Workspace, where you can elect to send out our package format or the zip. So that'll automatically create the zip, mail it, and then delete it.
Yep.
So can you go back to that drop down where you had that email on there? I had a question. You were emailing the graph, I think.
Yep.
There you go. So if I was going to mail this to a grower, I wouldn't want to use the IrrMAX package because he would not be able to view that, right? I'd have to use the HTML version.
Yep.
Correct. Yes. I can email that graph to you, Nick. What's that? nick.lemes@fondmail.com.
Yep.
Is that correct?
That'll work.
That should be on your little BlackBerry now soon.
Okay.
Okay, so that's how you can quickly mail even to a customer saying, look, I just picked up an interesting thing. I'll just email that one graph to you. Go and have a look. What do you think? And then discussion can start. Okay. So back to tools. Sorry. I'm going to go to the graph window, tools. So that was to zip the graph in the database. The mail graph I just demonstrated. And again, don't use the Webify for now. This is, being done in a different system, different contents. So ignore that one. All right. The next button is called Reports. And there's a few things you can do. First of all, when you click Reports, you've got to highlight a pane to which the reports should apply. So I go to the soil moisture one and click Reports, and I can have the graphed values. And when you click that, it either sends it to the notepad, to a text file, or a database. Let's keep it simple for now, and we just send it to the notepad to see what will happen. Okay. All the data now are being basically sent to the notepad. These are all the soil water graphs, the entire database. Okay. So again, if you just want to, I'll just zoom out here a little bit. And I'll zoom in to if you click on the ET pane, for example, and you hit Reports, the graph values will be all the ET values now graphed, displayed as numbers and date and timestamp. And again, you can save that and pull it back into Excel. The second report is cumulative values, right? We're still in the ET pane. So watch what happens. When you click that, and if you don't set any rulers, right, the entire database is going to be calculated. So if you click OK, now you got the cumulative ET. So the ET of every single day is added to the previous day. So as you go on, right, you get the cumulative ET, like that. If you send this cumulative values to a database, yes, say cumulative ETO, and
you don't have to hit that.
it's fine. Okay. It's created a database now, and you can plot that one. And now, instead of having individual bar graphs for every day, you have the ET shown as a cumulative trend line. There you go. And that can be, again, converted into, bars. bar width could be a day. Total. Yeah. Okay. So here's just another way of displaying things, right? You got increasing ET. That might be a nice feature with your growing degree units as well. So if you add that, this automatically will add growing degree days if you have a database where you enter them on a day by day, or you pull them in from somewhere. This can show you how that accumulates over time. Okay, I'll click back on the soil water pane and go back to reports. And here we have one that's called budget line periods. And basically what that will do is quite interesting. I'll show you. Just hit OK. And I'll enlarge that. It actually goes through the entire database, and we obviously have a blue band, we have a green band, and we have a red band. And it identifies the time and the period spent above the full point, right? Which in this data set is a total of 52.19 days, or 6.8% of the time. And here are the individual occasions where it dipped over the full point. Okay? So that's quite an interesting one. Below the full point, that's everything that's in the green. This is probably useful one. This one here. It's between full point and onset of stress, where we should be most of the time, right? And here we have 224.3 days where that actually occurs. And the other one, below the onset of stress, right? We had 142.16 days. There was actually a dormant period in that Lucerne patch there, where the crop didn't do anything. So that's why the number's blown up. But it just gives you an idea. It's like a quantification of how many days you spend where, right? So that could be an interesting thing later to correlate against yield and things as well. Okay, that's called basically the water budget report. Oops. Now, stress is still under construction. This is really a quantification of a stress index. So again, I don't want to touch on that right now. We have a quick look at daily water use, but I'll run a special one on that because there's quite some bits and pieces you can do with that. Let me set some rulers. Let's see. I'll just set some rulers first. Okay. Okay. So I have set two rulers, and I can now examine what is actually happening on the daily water use. What this daily water use report does, it corrects for the nighttime drainage. So, because when we look in very closely, let me just do that in a second. You can see that line during the night is not completely flat. If we actually take a horizontal ruler, okay, and we put it here, okay, you see how the nighttime component is not completely flat, and that's really drainage in the actual soil profile. And what the program does, it takes that amount of water out of the steep bit. This is the daily water use, right? So it takes actually all the nighttime changes and subtract it from the daytime changes to give us a better estimate of water use. What we need to do to operate that, we need to actually find the start of the day and the end of the day. And we can do that by that, where does that curve start to go down quickly and where does it stop again. And you read the times here, which is, yeah, so I'll go from, it's about from 6 in the morning, right, 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Okay, So let's just zoom out again a bit. We hit this button. Yep. And we position these rulers here and there, for example. Now we go to reports, daily crop water use. The start time was 6 a.m. and it slows down at 7 p.m. So we have to tell the program somehow, how long was the night time, so it knows to take all the changes that happened during the night and subtract that during the day. And then we go clink. Okay. And see what's happened now. It actually calculated the daily water. It's a much more better estimate rather than a total negative change during the day, which still got that drainage component in it. That's been sort of taken out. So here's the nighttime change actually separated out, and that's been sort of taken out. This VDTNC is a mouthful. What it actually means is volumetric daytime negative change. In plain English, it's daily crop water use corrected for drainage. We still struggle with some. But there are other things you can do with it, but I won't go into this today. I have actually a nice little presentation, which is really a separate thing, because you can actually calculate your own KC factors on the run. And there's also a stress index that I like to talk to, but I think that should be a separate session, not this one. And by the way, all these values that you see here, every single column, can be displayed as a line and bar graph as well, and that's what we're going to practice, but it's going to be in a separate session. So there you have it. These are the report, right, that you can do. Okay. Now let's just go back to the workspace and some of the tools up on top there. To save the workspace with all the graphs, you just basically hit this single button. If you hit the multiple disks here, that means you will save everything that you've created, right? That could mean new graphs, you added new panes, you added comments to graphs, you changed lines into bar graphs, you added another layout window. If you hit this, it will actually go through and prompt you for every change that you've made. Printing. You just hit this button here, and you see in the workspace you actually got this little square box. Now, you don't have to print every single graph by itself. Just by ticking the box, right? You can go to basically batch printing, which is this one, and choose the printer and hit OK. And now every single graph that's on that workspace will be printed. You can have a cup of coffee in the meantime, if you want to have a hard copy for a grower, for example. The next, this one is to add another database to the workspace. So, I think we have that one already, but you just, yeah, we got it. I just added that one to there. And that does not appear on the layout window, so this one is only appearing on the workspace itself. The next one is enter readings. And this is the file that I showed you a second ago. You just pick any database. It could be a weather database, a GDU database, a soil moisture database, and if you select it, you can enter and edit values manually at any stage, at any time. The next one is zip workspace. Again, we touched briefly on that just a second ago. So if you want to send me everything, absolutely everything, the layout, all your graphs, all your databases in one package, I shouldn't mix up that word now, because in one lump, so to speak, then you would click that, and it just creates a zip file that you can email to somebody. The mail workspace is the one that you should be using when you have done all your own alterations on graphs. You edit panes, you change properties, set full refill points, whatever. Initially, you send it back to us with that particular command. Ignore the Webify workspace. That's not applicable to you. And again, IrrMAX setting. That's quite an important little button. We mentioned it in the very first session. I'll just open it again. This is where you set all the global commands for the workspace and the graphs. For example, you can set all the colors of the graphs before they are being created, right? So if you don't like the color scheme of the separate level graph, for example, here is where you would set all the colors that you would like, yeah. The same to the budget lines. You can, rather than using black ones like we do, you can use different styles and different colors. The measurements, this is where you change everything into inches on a global scale, right? So sensor spacing is inches, sensor depth is inches, and moisture as such is inches. Date and time format, I don't know whether you've done that already, months, day, this is where you select that. Don't worry about mail, or well, we have to worry about.
You have to worry about
we have to worry about that, yes, before we, yeah, want to explain that?
Well, I mean, for IrrMAX to send email, as we've demonstrated earlier, it needs to be set up the same way as you'd set up a regular email client. So the options on this tab is the same information that you would use to configure your mail client. It sends mail by SMTP. So consult your network admin or whoever for the settings to put in there. But they're the same as the mail client settings.
Okay. Okay. Templates, again, it's not applicable for you because you're not verifying as such. Under general, I would advise you, it's always good to load the last workspace, because if I close it and I open it, I get exactly the same old workspace that I had before. You don't need a splash screen. This is just our add screen, really. And you can convert the graph icons. I'll just show you this. You can make them very small. Okay. Or you can make them large, like this. So when you roll, it's up to your own taste how large you want to see the icons themselves. I'll probably make them. I just want to demonstrate something else in a second. I'll do small ones. Okay. Yeah. So play around with this a little bit. This is pretty much all the global settings you can implement. Last but not least, this brings the layout to front. So if the layout for some reason has disappeared, like that, all you have to do is click on this thing, and then it basically comes back. It brings it back again. And the other symbols here, well, they're not really used that much. It's really just organization of windows. Watch what happens if I click on this. It just tiles, the layout window and the workspace differently. The tiling. I usually actually use this one. I found that quite handy. Okay. All right. One more little thing which I want to show you is this one here. See, I'm leaving that workspace, but it asked me very kindly because I must have made some changes. So do I want to save these changes? So I say yes. Okay. So imagine this one. This is, some, I don't know how many, almost 15 or so probes, okay, all in one workspace from different fields. And what is very handy little command to know, when you click on the left-hand button on last, you see how these arrows, they actually indicate the last point in the graph. So, for example, when you click on this window, you see, okay, the moisture content is right down there. When you minimize it again, right, you can see the arrow is actually corresponding with your last reading. Now, if you want to sort these ones in order of dryness, you just click on last. And now you got the driest one on top, then comes the second, and so on. Can you see this? So as you scroll down, they're getting wetter. So in a way, the workspace sort of can sort multiple probes and fields in order of dryness or wetness. Okay. You also can grab an icon and shift it along, right? And then just hit the button again, and it will sort itself again. It's sorted all to, if you want the separate level graphs up on top, it's sorted now in another order, which is the wettest is on top and the driest is on bottom. So just by clicking along here, you have it sort of goes through different options. Okay, I think that will do for today. Must be at full point. So again, if you've got any questions, let me know. I'll suggest we a few things. We have definitely a few more seminars, but not. It doesn't have to be immediately. I actually want you maybe to play around a little bit and collect questions. Send these questions in, and then we can have a very targeted seminar on all the things that are not clear. And then what I want to do is introduce you to the crop water use report a little bit more, and we talk about salinity, dry scan data. And then just before the actual probes are installed in earnest, we'll need to do a training session where we practice the downloading and uploading. So that would, now the information, as I say, which would be really good for us would be two things. Nick, one would be, to let us know about the passwords for everybody, how many there are, so we can set that up. The other thing is, could we have one example of a weather data source? I'm not sure really where do you get the weather data from, but are you going, for example, to a website? So if you let us know, then we can actually start looking at that and making sure we understand that, and we can also set that up back in your download commands. So if you have weather data there, when we actually create the workspace, all the weather databases are there for you as well.
Okay, we'll get that for you.
So just one side, one example will do. So Selwyn can basically wrap his mind around it and see what it's like.
All right. Tanner and I'll work on that. We'll get that for you.
Great. Thanks, by the way, of putting that onto Nick into the Dropbox. That's great. I got this morning.
Yeah, I think that will work well. We'll just kind of keep all of our files there, and then anybody that needs to go back and re-access any of our webinars or any of the files that we need for training purposes will all be in one spot that way.
Yeah. Look, in a nutshell, that's it. There's commands you probably never will really use much at all. It's like with every software. So just start playing around, add panes, play around with the properties, convert lines into bars, into negative changes. Then you get fit with that, and then we'll compile things that are unclear, where you got questions, because then we can put together a very targeted seminar just addressing issues and going through some of that stuff in slow motion once again.
Sounds great. Any questions, guys? thank you, Peter.
All right.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay. Yep.
Later.
So let me know when you want to run one. When you've got enough questions and other things together, let me know. I'm ready anytime. And before I actually travel to the S, we should definitely have two more, one on the crop water use and one on the salinity. And then, you know, and then another practice one on the up and downloading of workspaces, packages, and so on. But then you should be pretty right, I think.
All right, we'll make sure schedule a couple more by the middle of March, somewhere in there. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Okay. Everybody, have a good evening.